Hey everyone, the FMCSA just released a notice requesting truckers, companies, and ELD providers to provide comments on 5 areas of ELD regulations with hopes to simplify, clarify, and improve the regulations. And this is your chance to make your voices heard. A link will be provided in the bio below. The 5 areas that the government is looking for comments on include pre-2000 engine trucks, ELD malfunctions, ELD providers, ELD tech specifications, and the ELD certification process. Let's quickly look at questions for each of these areas. Many of these trucks and most vehicles with rebuilt pre-2000 engines have engine control modules, or ECMs, installed that could accommodate an ELD. So should FMCSA reevaluate or modify the applicability of the current ELD regulations for rebuilt or remanufactured CMV engines? It's an interesting one. Second area for ELD malfunctions. Currently, regulations require a driver documenting his or her rods to switch to paper logs when an ELD malfunctions. And when this happens, a driver is to follow the motor carrier and ELD provider recommendations when a data diagnostic event is logged. Whenever an ELD fails to record a driver's hours, equipment personnel must be able to review the driver's paper logs. By contrast, when an ELD malfunctions but continues to record the driver's hours accurately, the driver should not switch to paper logs. So should FMCSA amend carrier and driver responsibilities to clarify when a driver must switch to paper logs? 3. ELD providers. As you all know, there are hundreds of ELDs out there. And in the US, the ELD rule requires ELD providers to keep their information current. However, the rule does not include a time restriction. Should FMCSA require ELD providers to update their listing within 30 calendar days of any change to their registration information? And additionally, should ELD providers be required to confirm their information on an annual basis? And lastly, should an ELD provider's ELD be removed from the FMCSA list if it fails to confirm or update its listings on an annual basis? Okay, we're almost done. Number 4, ELD tech specifications. FMCSA granted a temporary exemption that allowed all motor carriers to configure an ELD with a yard move mode that does not require a driver to re-input yard move status every time the tractor is powered off. And additionally, the ELD would switch to a driving duty status if the driver inputs driving, the vehicle exceeds 20 miles per hour, or the vehicle exits the geofenced yard. Should FMCSA consider adding this temporary exemption to the regulation? And are there other factors related to this temporary exemption that should be considered? Another interesting question, should FMCSA consider allowing a driver, rather than the motor carrier, to change his or her ELD configuration to an exempt status to help reduce the administrative burden noted by the industry? And additionally, should FMCSA consider expanding the list of special driving categories to include driving performed under an exemption? And if so, what data should be recorded to specifically identify who made the change, why the change was made, and where the change took place to achieve an equivalent level of safety to prevent falsification? Lastly, the FMCSA is requesting comments on ELD certification process. Should FMCSA establish a certification process for ELDs? If so, what should a certification process consist of? And this is interesting because in Canada, ELDs cannot be self-certified. Instead, they're certified by a third party. Their certification can be done by an accredited organization that will make sure that the proper regulations set by the Canadian government are being followed. Is this something that the US should consider? That's all I have for you. Go make your voices heard and stay in the loop for future videos on regulatory topics like this by liking and subscribing. And don't forget, go check out full-length articles on all of these topics, including speed limiters, DOT audits, drug testing requirements, and more at cnsprotects.com. Stay safe out there.